Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about painting edges. There's 3 edges that you should know about. There's a soft and blurred edge, there's the lost edge, and then there's my favorite, the broken edge. So edges are something that if I had known about them early on when I began painting portraits and figurative type paintings, it would have made them so much better right from the beginning. But I was painting every edge really hard, really detailed. It was almost like I wanted my painting to have a painterly feel, but I was painting exactly everything that I saw. Almost a hyper-realistic kind of style that was coming out of my hand, but in my head, I saw a more painterly portrait with more brushwork. But the two weren't connecting on the canvas. And it took me a long time to really put the connection together that it was all because of my edges. So if you're new to portrait / figurative painting, really take a moment and look at the edges of your paintings. Are they varied? Are they all extremely hard? Even if you're doing hyper-realistic painting, which is something I don't do, but those edges should be varied as far as, you know, some being in the shadow or more lit. But to just understand the concept of edges will help you move the needle and take your paintings, especially your figurative / portrait paintings, to a more masterful level. So let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about. All right, we have a beautiful example of lost edges here with William Adolphe Bouguereau's painting The Abduction of Psyche. Here Cupid and Psyche are painted beautifully by Bouguereau as usual. You can see there is the lost edges are obtained by values. He's matching the values of edges in certain places and letting the contrast do the work rather than technically doing brushwork that's more softened. Truly, Bouguereau's edges are all pretty hard and easily denoted here. You can see them, they stand out in areas and other areas don't stand out as much. If you take a look at the painting in black and white, you can really see what I mean here. So, for instance, this area is lost because of the values. The value in the wing and the value in the outer part of the shoulder on Cupid are the same. So, rather than standing out like here in the hip area, the values are very different. The thigh, the side of his hip here, is a much lighter value than the little fabric piece that's coming around behind him, and that's creating a more harder, noticeable edge. And then you see the same thing coming down. You get a bit of the same value here, and again, that hard value there. With the hair on Psyche, you've got a significant difference in value. The shoulders a little bit more similar, it's not quite as contrasted. And then the hip area on her has more contrast, so you can see that edge much more strongly than, say, the edges here, which are more similar in value. And then we have a stronger edge around the foot again. So Bouguereau's done a really great job of having a variety of edges by making sure that the values around the edges vary. Okay, let's look at John Singer Sargent's portrait of Lisa Colt Curtis. This is a great example of all 3 types of edges. You have lost, you have broken, and you have blurred or soft, if you want to call it that. Let me just point it out to you so you can see it here in full color, but let's really look at it in black and white. That's when I can really see the edges. The area right here where her hair is meeting the shadow is a lost area, and it's lost because the values are almost the same and you can't differentiate between the edges there. It just gets lost in the background color. You see that a little bit more down here in the shadow of her dress, and then the edge becomes hard right here where the light part of her dress is significantly stands out against this dark shadow area. Now there are parts of the dress against her skin, like right here, where the values are similar, so the edges are going to be soft or blurred, if you will. And there are some harder edges here along her dress and this shadow area. And then the edge here is kind of soft because the values are a little bit closer. You have less contrast between those two spots. This hand is in shadow. It's not quite as dark as the table behind it, but it's pretty close, so it's getting lost in the shadow area there, as is her upper arm. This is kind of getting lost in the shadow area. This side of her dress, this is getting lost in the shadow. And then there's areas along her face right here that stand out with more hard type edges. So let me show you this a little closer so we can see the broken edges. Those are so beautiful. So in the area of her temple here, you can see that is a broken edge. It's broken because the brush strokes are being pulled into that hair, and it makes a beautiful broken edge. Let's see, there's a bit of a broken edge right here in the eye, and in that highlight even. Look at the highlights, they look broken as well. The area here in the forehead, that's a bit of a broken brush mark there. And then you get these values that are similar, and so this is going to be considered more of a blurred or a soft edge. So, blurred edge. This is sort of a blurred combo broken edge. I would say that's a blurred edge. Here we have a nice hard edge. It's a little bit broken. It's not quite as noticeable as right here in the temple, but it is significantly standing out against this darker background area. This is a soft edge because the values are similar, and this part of her dress right here is beautifully painted with broken edges. And you can see here the jaw has a little bit of a broken edge, but I'd say it's more controlled with value than with the actual brush mark itself. And again, you see that right here along the neck and shoulder area, and then it gets quite a bit more bright here, but notice the background is getting lighter, so it's still the same kind of mid value edge that are similar, so it's kind of soft. It's not as hard, say, as this light against dark area. Look at this ear, how beautifully broken those edges are. I just saw that. That's beautiful. And the mouth, that has some beautiful broken brush strokes and some values that are similar. Usually you see that around the lighter part of the mouth where the values will be similar. And then even in the shadow areas, he's controlling the edges here by having the value of the lip be similar to the value of the upper lip here where it's in shadow. And even here underneath the lip, even though it's more saturated, and then you have the same value right here. So his lip is painted very softly and with some broken edges. There's no hard edges, except for maybe you could consider these creases in the corners a little bit hard, but they're still painted with a bit of a broken edge. I mean, nothing in this face is giving me a super hard edge. You look at the pupils of the eyes, how they, I'm sorry, the, not the pupil, the colored part here. there are similar values, the dark brownish red color and then that dark grayish color there in the outer corner of her eye. The values are the same, so it's just getting lost there. So this is a lost edge. So beautifully painted. Look how soft her eyebrows are. There's a bit of broken brushwork and blurred edges in here. And even this eye line / eyelash area, it's a little bit harder, but it's broken slightly, so it's not appearing to come across as a super duper hard edge. And look how soft the nose is painted. I mean, these values are all so similar that it's just suggested here in the shadow side of the nose. And then it gets a little bit lighter and warmer here even, so that it's not standing out too abruptly. But it's painted with a broken / blurred edge, so it's just beautifully done. So you can see there is quite a lot of variety in the edge types throughout this piece of work by John Singer Sargent. So here's one of my own paintings. It's called Requiem, and it's an example of my favorite kind of edge, the broken edge. Let me just zoom in here and I'll show you up close. So the part of her leg here, you can really see I've exaggerated greatly the degree of broken edge that I wanted to suggest here. And I did that, and you can see, look at these beautiful broken edges on her dress. It is truly my favorite kind of edge. And I did that here and on the bike. So the point of the broken edge in this painting was it really helps me show motion. I wanted it to look like there was a lot of movement in this image. So let's just zoom back out. And the broken edge really lets me do that. It's as if you caught the motion with a motion blur. And look at this broken edge down here. You can really see. So then there's a variety of harder edges. So you have this edge of the bike, which is a little harder, this edge along the pant, this edge here along the jacket, and then right here I've broken the edge. It kind of reminds me of that Singer Sargent painting of Lisa Caught Curtis, but here I've just painted it with a broken edge. And then some of the edges are closer in value, so they're considered lost edges. Like this is a lost blurred edge because of the values being similar. Lost blurred edge here, and then let's look at it in black and white too. You can really see those value edges, like right through this area. Is very similar values, so the edges are softer because they match the values. Let's see, that one's pretty soft here, definitely here. And then here it's broken, but you also have a lot of contrast, so it could also read as more of a harder edge. And you have that here. Then you get broken and soft because the values are similar. This whole face is pretty soft. I don't see any significantly hard edges, but again, those are very two different value areas, so there's a lot of contrast. So that is definitely a harder edge. So there is a variety of edges throughout this piece, and that is easily seen there. So it looks to me like this area here in the corner of the eye, that's nice as far as the softening there with the values being similar. So you don't have a super hard edge there. It's pretty similar in values here along this nose area, so that softened out. The jaw area, no hard line here. You never want to paint a hard line along the jaw where it moves into the neck, and that is controlled with value and brush stroke. So it's a soft edge and it's controlled with similar values. And even over here along the cheek and chin and neck area, the values are similar, moving down from one area to the next so that it's softly painted. Now she was wearing lipstick, so we wanted to have that. But even here along this edge of the lip and the face, you can see the values are similar. They'll be different in color, but the values are similar, so it reads as a soft edge. Here's a nice hard edge along the ear and the hair where it's darker. And the ear to the side of the face, that's a soft edge because the values are similar. So you get it. It's a really great way to control your edges. And this was a way for me to punch up my favorite edge, the broken edge. So let's take a look at this beautiful painting by modern master Mary Qian. It's called Veiled Gaze. This is a beautiful example of all three of our edges. We've got a beautiful lost edge here where the side of the face is moving into the shadow of the hair. You can't distinguish between the cheek and the hairline there. They just blend together. The values are the same, so that's a lost edge. There's some beautiful examples of broken edge here along this jawline there. Values are the same, but the brush marks are broken. Same here along the neck and a little bit of the hair coming down behind her. Look at this beautifully broken edge right here on her shoulder, and you've got some of the values that are the same, so it's a lost and broken edge. You can see the chin area here. Got a nice high contrast area of edge, so it's stands out nicely against the softer broken edges. So you have a nice combination of the two to add variety to the portrait. The side of the nose into the cheek and the nostril area here, lost edges. The side of the mouth, lost edge, very softly painted. The values are similar so that you get softness, but then this midline of the lip is nice and hard to contrast the soft outer parts of the lip. You've got the darker shadowed eye here, but look how all of the detail inside of the eye is lost in that shadow. So those are lost edges. The pupil and the color cornea there, all lost in that shadow area. You've got some broken edges here and some nice contrast against the hair. It gets a little less contrasty here for some nice variety, and then it's completely lost there. Got some beautiful contrast here, very light against very dark. Then it softens up here, and with some broken edges, even though the contrast is nice and high there. Light against dark. The hair here is less significantly noticeable because you've got the hair getting lost in the shadow. You've got the side of her arm getting lost in shadow, and then here the arm against the shadow stands out nicely. So there's a beautiful amount of variety of edges. Again, you've got the edges being softened here because the values are similar, and there is a bit of broken edge brushwork as well, but it's very similar in contrast and values all along this part of the portrait. Beautiful painting by Mary Qian. Okay, you are now highly versed in how to paint edges. Understanding that there are a variety of edges in a painting leads to a more masterful painting and more interesting painting, and I hope I've inspired you to get out there and try some new things with your edges. All right, I'll see you in the next one.